In addition to Grant fighting, he was fighting right along a division that the Union armies had control of different areas. What they called them, when they divided up the country in order to operate in an area, they called them departments. So Department of the Missouri, which obviously has Missouri in it, and Illinois, and Arkansas. Grant was right down here, okay, at the very tip, near Cairo, is where he had to operate, at the very tip of Illinois and Ohio, on the Ohio River. But that's the dividing line between that department and the Department of the Ohio. So the Union commander of the Department of Ohio does not want to cooperate with the Department of the Missouri, right? It's like, no, this is my area. If your army, Grant, goes into my area, you come under my command. And so this guy's like, don't do that. So Grant's going, we have an opportunity here. We have to capture these forts that'll break this Confederate stranglehold on the Ohio and also down the Tennessee River. So this is the attitude that Grant had. I'm going to march forward. You guys work it out. Okay? So that's a pretty big story. That's a pretty big thing to do, is that when you're the first job you've got, you're going to basically thumb your nose at your commanding officer and the guy in the next department. And you're going to go do what you think has to be done. Now here's where you have really important upper command decisions that are made by somebody who's either flexible or rigid. Abraham Lincoln thought about all this. He heard people bitch, because trust me, the Union officers are like, he can't do that. Mr. President, you can't allow him to do that. And Lincoln was like, is there anyone else moving on the Confederates? Is there anybody else attacking? It's like, well, no, Mr. President. It's like, well, guess what? I think it's great. I want to then move the border so it includes him. Oh, okay. Can we do that? It's like, I'm the president. I am the commander-in-chief. I said move the line, right? So rigid thinking can stop people, okay? And you have to be able to have imagination and have to be able to be creative. That story is on one map strategically in this book, okay? Not in here, because they don't know what the most important thing is about history. A lot of people say, history's boring, I hate history, I don't like listening to it, it's names and dates. They're right. A lot of times it's terribly taught wrong. History to me has always been about stories. Stories about people, stories about events, but there's stories. In this case, there's at least 100 extra little stories in there, whether it's a caption under the wrong picture of Grant, or it's across from one map in the book that explains why. Why would we show this if it weren't important? And usually, if you have that in a book about Grant, or you have it in a book about Shiloh or anything, they might mention it, but they don't explain why is that so important. You show this to a military person, and they go, oh yeah, I get it. In Vietnam, they had I Corps, they had 2 Corps, right? And if you were inside of that, you were under a guy's command. So you do not go and take your unit and go into my area. It's very rigid, but they try to control things, and they try to make sure that they're organized. Well, guess what? The enemy can take advantage of that. Because let's say that, and this happened before we had the Federal Bureau of Investigation, right? Here's Virginia. Here's West Virginia, right? I just committed a crime and robbed a bank in West Virginia. Now I'm in Virginia. You can't chase me, West Virginia cops, right? Okay, so what do? Well, we had to create the FBI, because as soon as something crosses state lines, you still have to pursue criminals, right? Well, the same principle is at work here, where if you set up arbitrary lines for command areas, and then something happens right on the line, you have to have flexibility enough to take advantage of it, or to at least fight in a good way against your enemy. So this is a story about hierarchy, rigidity of thought, and being flexible, and why Lincoln eventually won this war is because he had no experience in this sort of thing, but he could tell common sense-wise that this makes no sense. Do not come to me and tell me that you don't like it because this guy went across the line. Change the line. Think. It's like, so he told them exactly how he wanted that war done. An editor, in this case, me, yours truly, had to see these stories. Had to see all of this, and because it was that important, I said, we're doing a map. And the map maker had never, ever created a map like that. First time ever you'll see a map like that in the Civil War. Okay? Because when he maps the battles, you just want to see the battle, right? In the United States, here's all the states. I said, no, there's a story here. So I want this map, create this map, and I told the author, you write the text, and then I edited it. Okay? So that's how that book got put together. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of people that go into making a book, and the editor plays a vital role. And I promise to tell you why they're not using editors. It's expensive. If I'm a publisher, this book is too expensive for anybody to do. I did it because I want this book to be used 200 years from now, 500 years from now. It'll still be valid. Somebody may say, well, that is not accurate or whatever. It's like, that doesn't matter. The bottom line is that this book has a chance of still being used hundreds of years from now because it's the only book that tells that story. It's the only book that uses maps with different colors, and an only map that shows hierarchy. So, why don't they use it? Well, first of all, no one wants to put maps like that because it's expensive. It's outrageously expensive to do that. I had to give the map maker a big piece of this book, literally. Okay? The author actually got less money than the map maker because the maps, it's a map book. It's not a textbook. So in order to do that, the map maker made the most money. Then the author got money for writing the text. And then eventually, hopefully, I'll make some money, okay? But that's not the way most businesses work. Most businesses are minimal investment, maximum return, okay? It's just that simple. It's smart business. This book is not smart business, and I admit that, because I'm doing something that I think is going to be more important than just making a profit on a book this time. So if you don't see maps in a book, it's because the publisher is not going to invest in those. Often the maps are made or paid for by the author. It comes out of his pocket, okay? And then some of them recognize that I can't tell the story without it. And then the second thing is that an editor is expensive literally to be able to create this and also put all the pieces together and really work with I had to work every day with the map maker and the author in order to tell all these stories. Today, if somebody wants to write a book on any subject, but we'll stick with military history, you sit there, you type up your story, right? Doesn't matter what sources you used. You got this manuscript, you sent it to a publisher electronically. They took a quick look. Somehow they figured out, okay, that will fit in because we want Nazis, we want, whatever it is that we want to sell. We'll be able to sell it. Does anyone do anything? No, they don't even do it. You figure you spell checked, okay? There's no editor. There's no editor to put it together. What pictures? What do we have lying around? Well, just reuse those pictures. Maps? No, he's paying for the maps. Unless we've got something we bought we can put in there. Okay? You put the minimum investment into a book in order to get the maximum profit out from it, because you can't sell books for what they used to go for. This is a $50 book. Most people are like, oh, I'd never pay that much money. I go on Amazon, I pay $2 for it. It's like, okay, but I can't afford to produce books and then sell them for $10. It's just ridiculous, But that's what people expect. And publishers now have to sell books in order to survive or exist. So that's why they don't have editors. That's why they don't pay for maps in books. That's why they don't have color. All those things cost a lot of money. Okay? But then you end up with things like this, which have bad maps, bad writing, poor research, but they sell it. They still sell it because who knows? That's this whole talk's purpose. Now you know. If you ever buy a bad book again, it's on you. Okay? Because I have given you the list. You can take this in with you. Take it with you to a bookstore, anywhere else, and go right down that list. And if one of these things is either not there or it looks really bad, put the book down and walk away. Okay? It's just that simple, because you're just going to be disappointed. Thank you so much for listening.
David, can you explain to us about World War One?
The magazine?
What's that?
There are 3 things that I currently have available. I published a magazine back in the 1990s called Napoleon Journal. And the electronic copies of all those issues are available at napoleon-journal.com. This magazine is a magazine that I currently publish for a nonprofit that I work with called the World War I Historical Association. And the magazine is called World War I Illustrated. And all the principles I just told you about color maps, as you can see, right? Here's some of the soldiers, what they look like, photographs. I actually have designed a game for about 4 of the issues. There's a game in there with counters that you can just, tear out and play. And so the magazine you get that as part of your membership to the World War I Historical Association. And so I wanted to show something that whatever I do, whether it's a book, a magazine, or a game, all those principles of primary source research, of color maps, of telling a story, and telling lots of stories, are something that I try to do in whatever format that I use, book, game, magazine. So that's why I brought these out as samples for people to see what it is that I do and why it's important to have those 10 things. Now, this is mostly in a book, but each item I work on touches on a lot of these different aspects that you would look in a book for. Okay, there's no back hype on a magazine, but we do have something, a graphic basically that tells a story on the back of the magazine, and then games, of course, they have an explanation of where we got the information, why do we put it together, and why is our interpretation of that information different from other games, or what does this tell us about a game that everyone had assumed was incorrect? Okay, so that's why I brought these samples, almost good, really bad. I'll be unbiased. Really, really good. Really good. And the same thing with in the magazine.
On average, after writing the book, day 1, then you have to go through revisions and all of this. How long does it take? So you finish writing the words. Now
in this case, we wrote the words specifically to go with the maps. The maps took 2 years. After as the maps were being created, then somebody had to write the text to go along with it. And then we went with crowdfunding to help finance it because we could never make enough money just simply putting it in the marketplace on bookshelves. It just won't sell. We couldn't sell enough copies, not as a small little publisher. So we did a crowdfunding with Kickstarter, and we were able to raise the money to print it. But the whole process took about 3 to 4 years to come out with a book, okay? I can guarantee this book did not take 4 years, okay? This one that I keep on knocking, it did not take that long, okay? Because it's just sloppy and it doesn't have the elements that we just talked about. I talked with a friend of mine who wrote a book, a tremendous book about aerial reconnaissance in World War I. And he spent 15 years doing the research and writing the text and collecting the photos and everything else. And that whole process took that long, and he finally found a publisher in England who did nothing to fix the book. He just took whatever my buddy had presented with him and then put it in the book, right? It still was a really good book, okay, because of all the good research and all the good material found on photos and things like that. But the publisher did nothing to promote the book. It was just thrown into the catalog. Here's another book. Do you want it? Yes, no, move on. And they already got 16 or 20 more titles that they're working on. So no one person was assigned to be an editor or to make this a better book or to hype it any more than any other book. They just simply put it, because honestly, if you're a publisher, again, with that the business model, all right, minimum input, minimum investment, both resources, people, money, whatever it is, and maximum comeback. So at some point you just stop promoting the book because it doesn't pay you as a publisher. Well, I'm going to keep promoting this forever because to me this is timeless. This is going to be valid now. It's going to be 100 years from now. It's still going to be a valid book. And I hope that, the rights to it, my daughters and grandchildren, whatever, are going to be able to keep going with, because I'm really proud of what we did with this. And so when people look at Grant Rising and they say, my God, that's a fantastic book. I may not benefit financially, but, 100 years from now, when they do the 25th digital version of the book, maybe somebody will be benefiting from it in my family, and that's good enough.
Have you? It sounds to me like an author is left with crowdfunding.
Yes, a lot of game publishers are too. A lot of small ones.
And I don't know, have you approached actual digital gamers in promoting this kind of electronic arts?
Well, you mean like a big company?
A big gaming company. They would love to have something like that to actually...
Well, maybe, okay. It depends on what the benefit to them would be. They have a more accurate map, for example, or they might have a game based on it. I just can't see them doing that, because if you could do another first-person shooter, that's where you're going to make the money. And if you're going to shoot zombies, you'll make a lot more money than you would, shooting real soldiers that you have to worry about their uniforms. Remember, when you do history, you have to get the buttons right. You've got to get the weapons right. You've got to do all of that. And if you just make up a story, like Game of Thrones, okay, or Tolkien, they just make it up. You can have any kind of sword you want. You can have magic. You can do whatever. History requires that you are true and faithful to what they wore at the time, how they fought, who were the people that were fighting. And that is a lot more time-consuming, and therefore it costs a lot more. Now, I would love it if somebody came along and said, "Oh my God, I love that book and I want to base a game on it." I just don't think that's going to happen. Okay, I'd love it if it did, but I think I'm going to be happy if people who love Civil War history discover this book whenever they find it, and then get a copy and tell their friends it's wonderful.
Any last words, recommendations, Nina?
Yes, don't buy bad books. Okay, that's the only way the publishers are going to change. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Dana. Let's not forget, folks, that Dana will be coming back on Sunday, October 30th, 2016, 2:30 p.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. at West Orange Public Library, South San Francisco. And he's going to talk about Knights of the Sky, the first fighter planes. And in this, he's going to discuss on. Let's remember that in 2014 to 2018 is the 100th anniversary of World War I. The war in the air has been popularized by Snoopy. He says, "Curse you, Red Baron." And remember, as the idolized or quote-unquote noble combat in 4 years of mind-numbing slaughter. Now, Dana's going to cover the true story about the fighter aircraft and aces in a fascinating tale of technological achievements and fierce competition for control of the skies. Well, let's say that Dana Lombardi is the owner of Lombardy Studios and has appeared on multiple episodes of the History Channel's Tales of the Gun series and publishes World War I illustrated magazine for the non-profit World War I Historical Association. Now, the event can't be done alone. The Geeks World Tour 2020. And we have many other friends, like the Catholic Worker Hospitality House as well, Covenant House, California, DundraCon, Facebook, Game Castle, Gator Games, KublaCon, Lombardy Studios, the National Alliance on Mental Illness San Mateo, Our Turn, Women on Gaming, Pazio, Project Read North San Mateo County, Red Dwarf Dimension Jump, Red Dwarf Official Fan Club, San Francisco LGBT Center, the Samaritan House, the San Jose State University Digital Collection. Let's not forget the St. Vincent de Paul Society, Bay Area, Northern California. And also the United Nations Association of the United States of America, San Francisco chapter. Let's also say hello to Vista Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired, Wizards of the Coast, the World War I Historical Association again, and of course Zach's Auto Collision. I want to thank everyone, especially you, for listening and stopping by, and I hope to see you in our next event. Oh, let's not forget our blog site where you could check the latest news and updates. It's at www.agwt2020, that's 2020.blogspot.com. See you soon.